Hello Flosstube and welcome to another video on my channel. This is Ros Clark Craft here on YouTube. You can also find me as Ros Clark Craft over on Instagram and Etsy and Facebook. I'm Ros and welcome. It's nice to see you, especially it's nice to see you if you're new here. I've had a minor little flurry of new subscribers in the last week or two. I think mainly because of a shout out from the lovely Michelle at Mama Loves You GB, who is mentioning my stitch quilt patterns, which are still free. We're nearly there. I think this should be coming out on the Sunday when Y is being put out. And so after that, there is only Z. So that is next week. And then they'll be available for free for another week or so. And then I will be taking down the free version and packaging it up and putting it for sale. So hello anyway, if you're new here, and especially hello if you're new because of that. Let me tell you what we're going to be doing in this video. I'm going to be talking about my stitching progress. There is an update on Stitch Quilt. There's also a couple of other things I've been working on, in particular my Saviour's Praise, which is making progress. It needs to make progress. There is a deadline on that. I'll talk about that when we get to that. So I'm going to do all the stitching stuff first. Then I'm going to talk about my summer camp project, Camp Nobody Cares. That is from a quote, I want to make beautiful things even if nobody cares. So I'm doing Camp Nobody Cares this summer. You're invited to join me. There is an introduction video explaining what that's about and where you can get some of the supplies. It's very low key. You can do it any way that suits you, that fits in with your timetable. But if you want a reason or an excuse to have more fun doing more creative things this summer, there it is. So I'm going to be talking about what I've been doing. I've had my first week of summer camp, so I've got quite a lot of things to talk about that I've been doing and some reflections on how that's been going. And then finally, at the end, I will talk about plans. I'll talk about my stitching plans as I talk about stitching. So if you're only interested in the cross stitching, that will all be in the first part of the video. And then I will go on and talk about other things after that. I do a lot of other things as well. So if you want to hear about some of those, then do stick around for that. So stitching, let's start with Stitch Quilt then. We're nearly at the end. I have stitched and indeed made up all my hexagons. I'm not going to show you Z today. I normally have shown in my videos all the ones that I have stitched, but I feel like it would be nice for Z to be a surprise on the last week when it's released. So I think since the last video, I think I had shown you as far as U is for umbrella. I think that's what I'd shown you. So U, we have V. V is for vegetables. So you can see I've got some peppers, some peas, a couple of tomatoes, cauliflower. That V slightly looks like it's stuck on the top of the cauliflower, but anyway, some sweet corn. And I've done a parsnip. I think the colours on my parsnip are not brilliant. You could make that a carrot if you prefer, or you could make it a better parsnip than mine. But anyway, I enjoyed vegetables, putting those together. That was quite fun. V, W. W is for weather. Some of these letters at the end of the alphabet are definitely harder to find, and I was really pleased with where I ended up with all of them actually. So this is W for weather. You'll see this only just fits on the hexagon, and that's because I really wanted to put it on this scrap of leftover fabric, and I think it's definitely not a 36 count. It might be 32, but I've got a feeling it might even be 28 count. I'm not sure. Anyway, if you've watched the introduction video, or you've heard me talk about this before, you'll know I designed them all so that if you do them on 36 count or 18 count, they will fit very comfortably in your hexagon. 32 count, some of them you will get away with easier than others. I think this, like I say, might be 28 count, and it really only just fits. But it does just, it just fits. but you can see why. I just thought that was the perfect fabric for this. So that is W for weather. X. Now X, notoriously a tricky letter, difficult letters, like I say at the end of the alphabet. I really didn't want to do a xylophone or an X-ray. I don't think either of them are particularly interesting or fun things that I was inspired to design. So I thought, well, what else begins with X? Nothing begins with X. I mean, there's a kind of boat that begins with an X. I only know it as Zebek. I only know it because I do crosswords. So anyway, I had a little bit of thought, and I was like, actually, we're going to go slightly different directions. So this is X, because X is for 10. The Roman numeral X stands for 10. And then I thought of that and I was quite proud of myself. And then I'm like, oh, that's quite difficult to design for as well. Anyway, so we've got a couple of dice, we've got a playing card and a clock to symbolise 10 is for X. So it's not my favourite, but I'm still quite proud of it because I feel like it does work, and it's more interesting than it might have been. Y, on the other hand, Y was a letter which, when I did my very first list and I was kind of thinking through things that I might do, and a lot of those I then changed as I went along, and I thought of different things that I wanted to do, and Z was one of those. I'd had an idea for Z for quite a long time, and then really only as I came to do it, I'm like, I think there's a better word than this, so I changed it. But Y, from the very beginning, was always going to be, Y is for yarn, and so then we've got some yarn. Let's take that off. In various different colours, and obviously that's one that's really easy to change and do any colours that you like. So like I say, I have stitched them all, I've made them up. I know I've been saying for ages, like on every Flosstube for about the last 6 months, oh, and there's going to be more finishing tutorials coming. I mean, there are going to be more finishing tutorials coming. I'm not going to make a promise about when they are coming. I'd really like to say there'll be one this weekend. Watch this space. Anyway, there are a couple other up there already. There's a video showing you how to take from your stitching to get to this. So how to, you know, put the hexagon inside and cut it and stitch down so you've got each one as a finished object. There is one on how to finish it as a needle book. It's not brilliantly filmed and it does slightly go off the side sometimes. So I'm going to try and redo that at some point. And there's one on how to finish these as a small hexagon pillow like this. I did originally do it with a stitch piece here, but I took it out because I want all my stitch pieces for one of the bigger finishing tutorials I'm going to do. But this is a super sweet finish. It's really perfect for highlighting one finished piece here. So you might choose somebody's initial or their favorite thing, or, you know, just a design that you really like. And then I've done, as you can see, just some fabric hexagons around the side. And then when I sort of took the stitch one out, I replaced it actually with this, which was originally in the needle book, to use it as a pin cushion. So even if you're not doing the stitched hexagons, I think this is a really lovely finish to make a really nice big pin cushion. So those are already out. Like I say, there may be more to come soon or later. Well, we'll see at some point. The other stitching that I have done. So I was away for work a couple of weeks ago. And so I took with me the latest Mill Hill that I'm working on. This is jewelled pear, and I've done all the stitching and none of the beading. I think that's right. I don't think there's any more stitching left. Jewelled pear was one of the kits that I've been really wanting to stitch, and I think it's really beautiful. I don't know if that's better if I put my hand back. Yeah, that's better. The colouring is not great. That looks much more orange, and in real life it's much more yellow. And green rather than orange and grey. That is really not doing that justice at all. Yeah, I mean, that's slightly better, but it's still, I mean, it really is yellow and green, not orange and grey. Anyway, Yeah, I really like it. I wish there were more in this sort of style. There is a jeweled apple, but I really don't like the design of it that much, so I don't think I will stitch that. But I really like this one, and I'm looking forward to doing the beading on it. They are perfect things for traveling, particularly with one of these frames. One of the things I love about this, not only does it make it nicer to stitch because you've not got the jaggedy edges, but because it's magnetic, your needle will stick to it, so you don't need a needle minder. Your beads, even if you're beading when you're traveling and you drop them, they sort of stay within, it's almost like its own little beading tray. So if you've got one on a needle and it drops off, you're not then looking for it, you know, in your hotel room or whatever. So I really like these for stitching because they're little kits, they're very portable, you get everything included except scissors. And with one of these, I really do think that is a perfect travel project. So I'm going to be away for a couple of days next week, and I will certainly take this with me. I have got other things I also might do that week, but yeah. So Mill Hill craze continues. I haven't finished painting. I showed maybe in my last Flosstube, I've got a display thing that I'm going to use for my Mill Hill kits. I've done the first layer of paint. I need to paint over it. I think I'm going to do it so it's got a dark blue background actually on each of the 4 tiles, and then I need to glue the magnets on, and then it will be sort of interchangeable. There's room for 4 Mill Hills to be displayed on that, so I do want to get on with that. So that's that. And then the big thing that I've been stitching, I will need to move to show you, and that is A Saviour's Praise. And I can't show you the whole thing because it's on this frame, and this frame is not the easiest for manoeuvrability. So I'm into the top half of the design. We are well over 50% at this point, up to about here, so above the house and the trees. It's relatively following the pattern. I made some changes on the sides because I wanted it to say, I'm sorry, I'm really struggling to hold this in a way that you can see it. There we go. I'll try and not move. I made some changes down the side because I wanted it to have all of the fruits of the spirit. As is typical with me, the further I go on with this, the further away I am moving from the chart. So for example, here, honesty. Honesty was on the original chart. It's not a word that I changed, but I hadn't stitched the bell at the bottom, and I was like, well, I should have that next to it because you're honest as a bell. And similarly here, I did want to add goodness. That's the thing I had on the original chart. This is where this is sort of ship in sail, and it didn't really speak to me, and it didn't seem particularly relevant. This is going to be a wedding present, and the ship didn't really speak to me in any way relating to the couple. So I took the heart in hand, which was elsewhere in the chart, and I put that there with goodness and slightly modified it because whatever. Patience, I think I stitched patience more or less as it came, although I did make a change here. The cotton reel and the scissors were the other way around, and the reason for that change was not really to do with how it looked or what I was thinking. There's a really big slub in the fabric just under, I don't know if you can see that, just under the cotton reel to make that easier to stitch around. Peace, sort of more or less as it was, but I haven't put the year in there because I've got the year further down. I put their names and the date of their wedding, so I didn't think I needed to put the year in as well. So I've just added, there were 1 or 2 of these little doodads on the chart, and I've just done a few more of them to fill that gap. But as you can see, we're right at the top. This is the top edge of the chart now, and I've done, you know, the sort of outline of that top border and down on the other side. So forgiveness, that is one that I have stitched. I didn't even bother charting that, to be honest. I think maybe I charted the word, and then I stitched the cross around it, and then added in the berries. That seemed to me to go nicely with that. Now this is the church that they are getting married in. So the groom's father is a vicar, and it's his church, and it's the church where they're getting married. And it is what they have used on their wedding invitations and wedding stationery. So the groom, who is my godson, is training to be an architect, and he's a very good artist and a very good technical drawer. And so he's done this beautiful pencil drawing of the church, sort of shaded in. So I've copied that and translated it into cross stitch. I've used colour, whereas he's just done a pencil drawing, more or less the colour of the brick of the church. And you can see I've done quite a lot of it in long stitches and half cross stitches to try and give a sense of the shading. Anyway, I'm very pleased with how it turns out. I think it's immediately recognisable, and not just as the church, but as his depiction of the church. And then on the original, there's a sort of basket of flowers there, and there is a woman, but as you can see, I've put the bride and the groom and changed the shape of the woman because the one on the chart looked absolutely nothing like the bride. She is Indian. He's British. He's got Scottish heritage. He's got beautiful red hair. So yeah, I wouldn't say that's an accurate representation of them, but it's sort of clearly meant to be them. And then I just put this little border underneath the church. That's charted as the numbers 1 to 10, which I might have done, but I wanted the whole design to just feel a little bit like them. And so you've got the very British church. They're both Christian, they're getting married in church, but they're also Indian parts of the wedding celebration. So I wanted some Indian elements to it as well. So that's where we're at. This is going to be a Bible verse that they're having at the wedding. The top part here, my plan is to do that more or less as charted. I don't really have any changes to make to that other than I'll use different colours. But it says we should have faith, joy, hope, and the greatest of these is love. So that seems very appropriate to me for the wedding. I haven't quite decided. I think I might just do the alphabet as charted, but I also might make some changes to that. And then I do need to go back and fill in at the bottom of the chart. I left a gap where the second verse is, and I'm going to put a verse there from one of the hymns that they're having at the wedding. I've got less than 10,000 stitches to go, which is good because the wedding is 4 weeks today. I think I can do it. It still needs quite a lot of work. So it does need a lot of focus in the next few weeks, because obviously it's not just the stitching. I want to wash it and block it and iron it and lace it and frame it as well. It's not the end of the world if it's not finished by the wedding. Good. I just discovered that it stopped filming as I transferred you back to this view. So I'm trying to remember what I was saying. I was talking about A Saviour's Praise, changes that I've made that I think, I have been really thinking about the couple as I've been stitching it and what I think they will like. I think I was telling you their wedding invitation. So they're a couple who, they're very young. They're very eco-conscious and also quite frugal. And so one of the things they did, which I thought was really lovely actually, for the wedding invitations, rather than going and getting things printed that'd be really expensive and wasteful, they had stickers printed with his drawing of the church, like you see in the sampler, and they just stuck them on the back of postcards that they then sent out to people, but not specially printed postcards, just, a random selection of postcards. Anyway, so I got one, which was a postcard of an illuminated medieval manuscript, which I thought was beautiful. And on the back he said, I chose this one for you because it's beautiful and theologically rich. And I'm like, there you go. People have different kind of relationships with their godchildren. I have 2 godsons, one of whom I know very much better than the other, largely because we've just lived much more close. And so I see his family very often. And one of my favourite stories of memories of him was 20 years ago when I was living in America, and I think I was on the phone to his mum, and his two older siblings were both at school, I think, and so he was the only one still at home. And we were chatting, and he was obviously there and asking who she was talking to. So she said, I'm talking to Roz. And he looked at her and said, Roz is mine. Like, yes, I am, because obviously I know them all and I do love them all, but I'm his godmother. not the others. And so, you know, he is very special to me, and I'm very excited about the wedding. I'm quite excited about the wedding because, like I say, the bride is from an Indian family, British Indian, but nonetheless, as well as the wedding in church, there is like a whole week of events beforehand, like you would have in an Indian wedding. And I'm not invited to everything, but I am invited to the party the night before. So obviously I needed a new dress for that. And I've got a new dress and I really love it. But I do want to bling it up for that, because all the Indian people will be there in their amazing, I mean, maybe saris, but I think more likely lehengas, which you can really dance in. And they're massively embroidered and sequined and whatever. And I'm like, I want the bling. So I've ordered a load of sequins, and hopefully that will arrive on Monday. And so then when I'm away for the rest of the week, I can take that with me. And that will be the other hand sewn project that I plan to do while I'm away, is sequin the dress. So that's fun. Right, I think that's everything I had to say about A Saviour's Praise. I don't know if I will have it finished in a floss tube, but what I will make sure I do is film it before I give it away. So it may need to be filmed and then inserted into a video, but I will definitely make sure I do that because I want to show off. I mean, I'm excited to see the whole thing because, like I say, it's a very old frame that I'm using. It was my aunt's, and it's not one that you can easily kind of move to see different parts of the pattern. You basically have to unstitch it and then re-stitch it on when you've moved it. So you don't want to do that very often. So it'll be fun to see when I've got the whole thing laid out. I think it's going to be glorious. I hope so. I hope they'll love it. I think they will. I think they will really appreciate it. Not everyone is stitch worthy, but I think these two are, and I think they will treasure it. So I've been glad to do it for them. So anyway, that's all the stitching I've been doing, and it is all the stitching I'm likely to be doing. Like I say, I'm away next week, so I will be taking the dress to put sequins on. I will take this, and I might get to do some beading on that. And the other thing I will be taking, I've cut out a load of fabric hexagons to finish up, like the ones that I've got on this pillow here. Not with plain fabric. I've got some ones with, you know, really beautiful bolder prints even than these. And you can see on mine, I've tried to use sort of plainer colours. These are Tilda chambray fabrics. I've tried to use those as the outline ones, although not entirely. Some of the ones with a smaller pattern, like for example this one as well, which has got a little stripe to it, I've definitely used that as an outline fabric. But then I've saved the ones really with the big bold patterns to make some extra ones, so that when I come to do some of the bigger finishing projects, I say when I come to, I don't know, let's be confident, when, not if, I've got more than the 26 stitched ones to finish those with. I do want to show you how to make a project bag out of these, and for that you definitely need more than 26. So yeah, that's another hand stitching thing. So I've got some quite good travel projects at the moment, the Hexies, the Mill Hills, and blinging up the dress. So that is what I will be doing next week for my stitching. I haven't had any stitchy haul. Yeah. I guess the other thing actually that I do want to say before we move on from the stitchy things, I don't know whether there's going to be a stitch in London this year. Marie would normally have announced it, you know, a long time ago. And I know she was planning it, but I also know she's not been brilliantly well. I don't know exactly what's wrong. You know, they've obviously managed to keep up really well with the Swan Bay fabrics. I'm part of their subscription club, and those come out, you know, absolutely. And she does a beautiful, beautiful job of those. But it may just be that running retreats this year is just one step too many, which means I won't have been on a retreat this year. I didn't go to Big Stitch. I couldn't have gone anyway, but I might have thought about going if I had known there wouldn't be a stitch in London. I would love to know if you're in the UK, if you know what's happening with Stitch in London. I would love to know, because if it is happening, I still would love to go. That is my sort of one true love a retreat. But if it's not, or if you don't know, what other retreats, cross-stitch retreats, are happening between now and the end of the year? I guess particularly I'd love something in September, October kind of time, but I'm open to ideas. So yeah, hit me up with your suggestions. Could be a day retreat, could be residential. I haven't got a little dog at the moment to tie me down, although, you know, he never really stopped me from doing Stitch in London. But yeah, I would love to know, what have you got planned for the rest of the year and what can I tag along with? I am sort of wondering if there isn't anything, whether I might try and just do something meeting up with, you know, a few stitchy friends or something like that. But I haven't got anything planned, and I'm not sure whether I have the capacity to organise anything. I'd really like it. I was really looking forward to Stitch in London this year because I could go without Charlie for the first time and stay in the retreat hotel and, you know, come down in my pyjamas and be there late at night and not having to worry about needing to drive home and that kind of thing. So yeah, if it's happening, that's what I'd really love to do. Anyway, I think that is now all this stitchy stuff, except to say I have been doing a rehang of my gallery wall. This is what I was showing when I realised it wasn't filming. So this is the thing I like to do seasonally. You can see I've been getting out some of my summer projects. This is an Emma Congdon that was originally a Caterpillar Cross Stitch Club box. That was one of the very first things I stitched. Yeah, when I really started doing a lot more cross stitching a few years ago. There were reasons for that. If you're interested, you can ask in the comments. I've talked about it before on the channel. It's not that interesting. This is also an Emma Congdon. This was a Cotton and Twine box that I won in a giveaway a year or two ago before I had a subscription to that. This is a pigeon coop design, which I did on 46 count, maybe. That was a really bad idea. It's really bad. I mean, if you compare it with the chart, there's very little overlap with where the stitches are supposed to be, but I do love it. I think if I were to do it again, I wouldn't do it on 46 count and I wouldn't do it on that fabric. I like that fabric and it goes well with the colours, but you can see, I think even on this video, the whole effect is just quite dull. I think I would stitch it probably on a pale fabric, and instead of the white outline, have a dark outline to the colours. But anyway, it's fine. I am going to tentatively move you and try and make sure that we are still filming. This with the hexagons, that's from Hands On Design. It is flamingos. I don't know if she's selling that chart or not. I stitched it. Let me try and get this so you can actually see it. There you go. I stitched it from a chart in a quilting magazine. If you have Readly, you definitely have access to this. There's probably an American equivalent giving you access to magazines digitally, I'm not sure. It may be that she has now released it. She definitely has other stitched hexagons, and it was one of the big inspirations for the stitch quilt for me, was thinking, oh, these are really fun to work with as stitch hexagons. And going around, we've got Fresh as a Bloomin' Daisy. That's from Kate Blanford Designs. I think that came in a box from her. I really liked. I've got my tweed clock, and then here, this is Ink Circles Red-Headed Bees. That was stitched as part of a round robin. I really like that. I really want to see some more ink circles at some point in a round robin. If you're interested in doing an ink circles round robin, let me know. Down here, Mothers of Invention. This is a little side note. Yesterday I was watching Steph from Lindy Stitches, talk about some of her pattern designs that have flopped, in inverted commas. I don't know what her successful charts sell in terms of numbers, but her flop numbers were like, wow. If I sold that on any of my charts, I'd be absolutely thrilled. But it was interesting because she was talking about why some of her she thinks flopped, and some of them is pretty inexplicable. Some of them I'm like, yeah, no, I can see why there wouldn't be as much of a market for that. And that's really what she was talking about. If you design something that's really niche, you should expect niche sales. And one of my design principles is I don't want to design things that already exist. I don't think the world needs me to design another reproduction sampler or another not reproduction sampler or, you know, another Santa Claus or, you know, do you know what I mean? There are things that already exist out there. And yes, you know, people do different versions of them and their take and their style, and that's fine. But what I want to do is something that you think, yeah, I can't find that. So for example, last year I designed 3 bonfire night charts because I genuinely could not find any bonfire night designs. If you want to stitch bonfire night, they're in my Etsy shop. Remember, the 5th of November. And maybe fireworks is the one I just called the fireworks one. I mean, you could stitch that for any time. It's not bonfire night specific. Anyway, so yeah, so one of the first series I designed was what I call the Fierce Ladies series. And there are 2 charts that are available, Mothers of Invention and also All Good in the Spinsterhood. I do have a 3rd chart, which I've called Heroines of Their Own Lives. I've never got around to stitching it or making it up. And I'll tell you why. I have sold some copies of Spinsterhood, not loads, but some. I don't think I've sold any copies of Mothers of Invention. So at that point, I'm like, do you know what? I've got this chart. If somebody really wants it, they can have it. But I mean, I do want to stitch it because I kind of want all 3 of them on display in my house. So I will do it sometime, I think, probably. But it wasn't high on my priorities list, even for me at that point. Anyway, and then the other summer things you can see are up here. So Happiness is Handmade on the door. That was the recent, I'm waving and I can't see where my hand is. I can't get my hand in camera. There we go. That was the recent Historical Sample Company. I really can't work out which way my hand needs to go to be near the thing. There we go. Let's stick it there. It looks really, really badly finished on this shot. I mean, it is quite badly finished, but I think it does look even worse than it is actually. It's not perfectly centered, but it is more nearly centered than it appears to be on that. And then up here, we've got a Groovy Chick from Satsuma Street, a collage that I did some years ago that I really love. That's Bertie, also from Satsuma Street. And that is my Summer Union Jack. That is one of my series that has sold moderately well. The 4 seasons, a stitching themed one and a Christmas themed one. All in that same smallish stitch can, that same sort of design with different motifs for the different series. Anyway, I think that really is now all the stitching that I was going to talk about. So if you're just here for the stitching, bye, nice to see you, thanks for stopping by. I'll be back again. I will have stitching to show you in all the Camp Nobody Cares summer videos. Not least I will have a Saviour's Praise to show you every week till that's done. But I am now going to be talking about some other things, so do stick around. Lots of fun things to talk about. Camp Nobody Cares, just really briefly, it is inspired by Journals for Breakfast, who's doing a summer art camp at home on her own. I'm like, that's a great idea, I'm going to do that. Mine is a little bit different from hers. You're very welcome to join in. I will put a link below to the Google Drive where you can find things like ideas for field trips, ideas for exercises. One of the things you can get there are the camp badges. You can see I've printed mine out, and I've printed mine out on actual sticker paper. So, you know, I'm awarding myself badges freely as I go. You don't have to print them out. I mean, you don't have to give yourself badges at all, but they are also there, obviously. They're there sort of in PDFs of the whole sheet or as individual image files. So you could just give yourself a badge, you know, on your Instagram feed or, you know, your social media or wherever you want. Badges, I think the badges give you quite a good idea of my sort of take on a summer camp. Let me see, let me show you that page so you can look at them and tell you what we've got. We've got, I didn't procrastinate too much. New project. I learned. I failed. I tried again. Bookwork, I'll explain a bit more in a minute. I helped. I tried something new. I've given myself that badge this week. Teamwork. So something, maybe you meet up with a friend and do something, or maybe you part of an online group working on something. Exercises I'll talk more about in a minute. Courage, were you brave? Joy, inspiration. Did you go on a field trip? Do you have a completed project? I haven't given myself one of those yet. Were you out in nature? And then there's a couple that are blank here so that you can put in your own achievements, whatever they happen to be. So there's one sheet that has that. There is also this sheet, which just has more of the things that you might be doing regularly, or certainly the things I'm doing regularly. Bookwork, exercises, and field trip. And then there's also just the sort of generic camp badge. So you'll find those, you'll find schedules you can fill in, timetables, ideas, all kinds of stuff. And the real goal of Camp Nobody Cares is to have fun and be more creative than you otherwise would have been this summer. So everybody's goal is different. You can do it. Some people I know are doing it with their children, which is fun, and definitely give them stickers and maybe make different stickers for them. But also, you know, I'm doing it on my own. You can do it if you have got some time off. You can do it if you don't have any time off. I have got a timetable that fits around my work schedule over the summer. Mondays to Fridays. I haven't scheduled the weekends, but you know, I will definitely do some at weekends. So you can really make it work for you. Let me tell you what I have done in my first week. So this is where I put my stickers for my first week. So this is my generic camp badge. Things I have awarded myself. I'm going to do this in the order I did them, not the order the stickers there are. So I did a field trip. I started this time last week with a field trip. This was something I'd booked even before I thought about doing summer camp, but it fits perfectly. It was a 3-hour workshop at a local gallery that I really love. The lady who runs it is someone I've known for years and years and years, and has really fun workshops in there. And this was one with a potter making a monster shaped pot. So a little pot that you might put a plant in, or maybe a pencil pot. I was like, oh, could I make it into a mug that I could drink from? And she's like, well, you could. And then I looked at the thing when I finished, I'm like, yeah, no, I won't be drinking from that. It's huge. Although it does shrink in the kiln. So it'll be interesting to see what size it is when it comes back. So we shaped our pots, pinch pots, by hand. And then she showed us how to, you know, add bits on. She had all sorts of wonderful things, sort of garlic presses and potato risers that you could use to make hair and things like that. She showed me how to make the eyes the way I wanted. I thought it was really clever. She brought with her, she printed out a whole load of pictures of different animals. So we spent 10 minutes just working on paper first. I can see if I can find my drawing actually. So I did go to the workshop. I live really near the thing, and so I was really late. I wasn't late, but I was like bang on time, and realised that my phone was entirely out of battery, so I didn't take any photos during the thing. I will put a link below. The lady who ran it has got a little video that she took of the morning, and you can just really briefly see the thing that I made. But this was my sketch, and I just took elements from the different animals in front of us. So the eyes were from a frog. There was a green tree frog. This is a parrot's nose. This was a giraffe, ears and horns. These were the frog feet as well. I think I added the circles just because I felt like it needed something there. Although actually, in the finished thing, I didn't really have those circles at all. The finished thing does not look very much like my sketch, although it does have, apart from these, it does have all of those elements. What else did I add? I added some bushy eyebrows. And these ears became twisty horns. Yeah, so but it was fun. So we spent the time studying it, and some people had come with ideas of what they wanted to do. Someone wanted to do a character from a children's picture book, and someone wanted to do a sort of Christmas themed thing. There was one lady who had done the workshop before and made a sheep, and she wanted to make a second slightly different sheep. So you could do whatever. There were only 6 of us, so it was really nice, really relaxed. She was a great teacher. you know, she showed you the basic techniques at the beginning and then said, you know, you can't go wrong. And you know, whatever you want to do, we can find a way to do it. So because obviously people were doing very different monsters with very different kind of things, but she had enough time to go around and help us individually work out how to do that. So we made it out of stoneware, and then we were able to paint it with underglaze, so that she then has taken them off to fire them, and then we'll send them back to us. So it will be properly, you know, I mean, it is food safe or waterproof or whatever for what you want to use it for. Yeah. So I did ask when we might get them back, and she said probably it won't be till the end of August because she's got various things on over the summer, and obviously they need time to dry and then fire them and whatever. So that'll be a nice sort of finish at the end of the camp, I think, to get my monster pot back. I would say that ended up being more one-on-one scale than I thought it might be. I thought it was going to be smaller than that, but it's really not that much smaller. Although, as I say, it will shrink in the kiln. So we will see how it ends up. Anyway, it was super fun. It was one of those things where you just like, actually, this is really low stakes, because unlike some people who are trying to do actual things, mine, I mean, it didn't matter how it ended up. That's how it's planned. I mean, it's a monster. Nobody knows what it looks like. So it looks like what it looks like. And I've never really successfully worked with clay before. It's not my thing, but she was great. And I was genuinely really proud of what I made. I hope I'm not disappointed when it comes back. We will see. I will certainly show you. So that was a great way to start with a field trip. What else have I been doing? So one of the things I really wanted to get back into the habit of doing was a thing called morning marks. So these are from an artist called Tansy Hagen, who I've been on, well, a number of workshops with her. One of the workshops I did with her, we made this sketchbook, and yeah, I really enjoyed doing that. But also she does these sort of watercolour sort of, I'm trying to look, what have I got one that looks a bit bold? This is a bit like the sort of things she does, with just different colours in sort of squares and rectangles laid out neatly on the page. Some of my pages are a bit like that, and some of them are not. But I do really like it. I put on the podcast that I like to listen to in the morning with Bible and prayer and reflection. And this week I have been doing morning marks while I've been listening to that. And I have really been enjoying them. Yeah, this one slightly went off-piste. It's okay. But it's just a really nice, mindful way of starting the day with a little bit of colour. I just use the same little set of watercolours in a tiny tin. I sit at my desk, my new art table, have the podcast playing. It's about 15 minutes long, and it just is a really nice start to the day. I then follow that after the podcast is finished with morning pages. So morning pages are taken an idea from The Artist's Way. If you've not come across The Artist's Way before, do go and look it up. It is a really interesting thing. It's a book, it's an idea, it's a program. I've done it a few times, and every time it has been really transformational for me. Maybe I will do it again at some point. I don't know. But the two big ideas anyway that I like to take from it are the morning pages and the artist date. So morning page is the idea that at the beginning of your day, you just handwrite 3 pages. She doesn't specify the size of the page, so, you know, there's a little bit of leeway in that. But I like to do it after I've done my morning marks for my podcast. I like to do it partly as a prayer, partly as a brain dump, partly it's just a way of clearing my head at the beginning of the day. Sometimes I'll part of that writing will include, this is what I'm planning for the day. Sometimes it will include bigger things that I'm thinking about. But I do find it's a really great way of starting the day, getting stuff out onto the page and out of my head. And then it makes me more productive in work. It makes me clearer about everything, but it also makes me more creative. And so that's why for me it is part of my summer camp. So that's my sort of first daily session. of the day. On my timetable, I think it says 8 till 9. I'm not good at mornings at the moment, so I've not done it at 8 till 9. I think the earliest I've done it is 9 till 10, and sometimes I've done it quite a lot later than that. But I have done it not every day. I've just been reading this Uppercase magazine. I've been subscribing to this for 6 months. This is actually the last one of my subscription, not because I don't love it, but it has to come from Canada and it is quite expensive, and I will probably subscribe again at some point, but it's enough for now. But one of the articles I've been reading in this issue, let me see if I can find it because I thought it was really interesting, talking about there's a lot of practice makes progress in this, which I really like. Practice doesn't have to make perfect, but it does make progress. And what she was talking about, here we go. This is what really resonated with me. I don't usually do well when trying to keep up an unbroken streak like a 100-day challenge. Tell me about it. Or when an app nags me to log in and use it every day. It is too easy to give up completely when I've missed a day and end up feeling disappointed in myself. If my plan is instead to do a specific thing more days than not, missing a day is simply part of the plan, not a failure, so I can merrily continue the next day. I have quite a few things I do daily-ish because I know that life is better when I do them. And I just thought that was a great idea, daily-ish. You don't have to feel bad if it's not every day, if it's daily-ish. But it's, you know, it's not once a week, it's not twice a week, it's daily most days. I think that's good. And that's about what I've done with morning pages this week, daily most days. And I like that. I like having a sort of habit to it. So that's the first part. Well, no, that's the second part. So that's field trip, morning pages, morning marks. The next thing that I've done is what I call bookwork. So I'm doing camp for 6 weeks. So I picked out 6 books from my art and craft library that I wanted to spend time with. And the plan is that each week I'll spend time with that book. They're different, so it will work out in different ways. Some are much more technique project oriented, and I've got those in mind for a particular thing. Some are exercises and some are inspiration. I thought this one was going to be inspiration, but it was not as inspirational as I thought. And I think I remembered why I've never really engaged with this book. So it is now on my charity shop pile, but I'm glad I've looked at it properly. So it's by Perry Lewis and it's called Material World, The Modern Craft Bible. And I think what drew me to it was this list on the front. There are tips and interviews from people like Emma Bridgewater, Amy Butler, Tatty Devine, Tracy Emin, Kay Fassett, Liberty, Grayson Perry, Rob Ryan, Topshop, and Philip Tracy, amongst others. And there are, but what you get from them is, you know, sort of a little quote. Let me see if I can find you a little quote from somebody. Yeah, about something vaguely relevant. What have we got here? This is Philip Tracy. What is Philip Tracy? Actually, you do get a little bit more from Philip Tracy. You get a whole page from Philip Tracy. But a lot of them are just like these little 1-sentence quotes at the bottom. And they, you know, they're fine. But yeah, I mean, there were some of the lines, I really like this idea, design for your fantasy alter ego. And actually that relates slightly to something else that I'm going to talk about later on. Yeah. So anyway, that was fine. And then what it is really, which was not really clear to me, at least when I bought it and from the front cover, is that we've got, I think it might say somewhere, 15 techniques, each of which really has a project to it. Now, I do like the way she does her projects, to be fair. They are not, here is a thing and this is how you are going to make it from beginning to end so it looks like this. They are, here's a general idea, here's where you start, here's the techniques that you might use, and here's how you might finish it. Here's a couple of problems you might come across, and here's what you do about those. So for example, this is the page on decoupage. So she's suggesting starting with a coffee table, but you could start with other things. The kinds of paper you might get, the kinds of glue you might need. You'll need scissors, craft knife, brushes, varnish, and a cloth. give the surface you'll be sticking onto. So, you know, any surface. Here's how you do the collage. Here's what you might do if you've just got one image that you want to use, or one sheet of paper that you want to use. Here's how you finish it. What do you do if you've got a bubble? What do you do if you put a piece of paper in the wrong place? And then you've got a couple of artists or craftspeople who work in that field. You don't get great examples of their work. And then there's a second project. This one does have a little bit more precise detail to it for the shoes. What I found was the techniques I'm interested in, I already know more than she gives you. And the techniques I'm not interested in, I'm not interested in. So what was I inspired by from the book? There were two things that I thought, actually, yeah, I do want to do that. One was rehang my gallery wall. Can't quite remember how that came out of the book, but it definitely did. And the other was a thing which I'd thought about a while ago and I've slightly forgotten about, but I want to get back to, which is upgrading my wardrobe. And what I mean by that is either taking items I already have or the big stash of items I might make and thinking about how I can make them interesting and unique and personal and fun. So that might be adding frills, or it might be adding patchwork, or it might be adding sequins. Like I'm going to bling up the dress I got. Maybe I'll put in a picture here because it's a great dress and it's still on sale. It's from Next. The brand is Love and Roses and it's in their V&A collaboration, and I kind of want everything in that collaboration, but this is the one that I've got, and I'm going to bling it up. But I do want to do a bit more of that, making my clothes not just things to wear but things to enjoy. So yeah, it did make me think of that. I think this book would be good if you're somebody who's never really crafted before, and in particular when she talks about material world, I was sort of expecting that to be interpreted quite broadly, but actually she really does mostly mean fabric. So if you are thinking about upholstery, yeah, upgrading your wardrobe, jewellery she's quite keen on. And maybe it's a bit more than that. She has paper cutting in there as well. Quilling, I'm not interested in quilling. And you kind of want something that will give you confidence to try doing things with your own creative ideas. This might be for you. I will say, slightly weird, because definitely, as you'll see from the list that I read out, she knows there are men who do this. The book is very much written assuming that you're a woman, and very much assuming you're a particular kind of woman, which I sort of am, but not really. So there's a bit where she's doing printing and she says, oh, and a great thing to print is a duvet cover. I'm like, that would be a great thing to print. Because duvet covers can be really expensive. And, you know, when it comes to spending money, we all know we're going to go for the pair of shoes instead, don't we, ladies? And I'm like, really not. I hate buying shoes. I find it... Anyway, I've got good shoes at the moment. But yeah, I'd be much more likely to buy a very cool duvet cover than a pair of shoes. So there's quite a lot of that sort of assumption about you as a reader. If you're not too irritated by that, or, you know, you are that sort of person. But I think really, if you're someone who just wants to feel like, I like to be creative, I don't really know where to start, I do think the approach she has is better than in a lot of craft books, which I feel don't give you confidence. They're very much, you must follow my instructions perfectly and then you'll have this thing. But then you think, well, I want to do it again, and how do I start? Whereas she, I think, is like, yeah, you can do this any way you want and have your own taste and your own ideas. So that was my bookwork for the week. Exercises. So each week I want to try and do at least a couple of exercises that are not about a project, but just, you know, being creative, trying different things, experimenting a little bit. So this week my exercises were, there we go. Yeah, there we go. So what have we had? Field trip I succeeded at. Exercises. One of my exercises I failed at, so I gave myself the failed badge for this. So the exercise I did succeed at was pick a Zentangle pattern and do it. And I actually really enjoyed it and spent a little bit of time doing several Zentangle passages. And they are not in this book, and that's why I'm not showing you them. Okay, that's fine. I did a few Zentangle patterns. If you've not done Zentangle before, it's a nice meditative calming thing. You can do a small pattern in 10-15 minutes, or you can do something really complicated and spend hours on it. Oh, I tell you what I did do that I've got here. After I'd been working on the patterns, I then did some Zentangling on my morning marks, and actually this was one of the Zentangle patterns that I had tried, the Celtic knot there. So that is some of my Zentangle work. So that was good. It's a, you know, it's not a thing I probably am going to do terribly regularly, but I like it as a way of getting out of your head and into your hands. It's very repetitive, it's very meditative. Yeah, and it's quite fun doing it on a coloured background. So I did do that one. I did not do the one that was go outside and arrange some natural objects in a beautiful way. If you know the artist Andy Goldsworthy, this is very much inspired by his kind of work. He works with leaves and stones and trees and all kinds of things in their natural environment, but arranges them in ways that are just beautiful. And it's a really lovely thing to do. You can be at the beach or in a park or even just in your own garden and collect, I don't know, a series of leaves that are in different stages of the process from green to orange, and then arrange them in a rainbow order, or take the petals of a flower and put them in size order and lay them out. I think that would be a really fun one to do with children outside. You know, can you collect pebbles of every colour and put them in a circle, or yeah, sticks that you like and make them into a shape. Anyway, I didn't do that, so I failed, and that's fine, because even for failing you get a badge in camp. Nobody cares. So my exercise, my focus project of the week was a Saviour's Praise, which I've talked about already. So I've given myself 3 sort of sessions a day: the morning session, which is no more than an hour, late afternoon session after work for a couple of hours, and then an after dinner session of a couple of hours. And the after dinner session has always been a Saviour's Praise. The afternoon session, sometimes a Saviour's Praise and sometimes one other of these things. The other 2 stickers I gave myself, I showed my work. So I put pictures of a Saviour's Praise, at least, on Instagram, and I tried something new, which was really the clay. I've tried clay before, I've never tried it like that before, and I'd certainly never succeeded like that before, so I felt like that deserved a badge. So that is week 1 complete. I would say, for me, the real benefits of doing it in this way are purpose and permission. So, you know, when you sit down, when you're not working, in your kind of around time, free time, whatever that looks like for you, there's a lot of things you could do. You might be the sort of person that always looks around at that time and thinks, oh, I should just tidy up or get the Hoover out. I'm not really that person. But I did, before camp started, I did make sure I'd reached washing up level 0 and washing level 0, and had done a basic level of tidying and cleaning. I find I'm always more creative if my kitchen counter is clear, because then I've got a space to work. It's really helping me having my dedicated art table, so that space is always available to work. So those kind of things. But yes, when you're thinking, what might you do? You might think, oh, I need to phone somebody, or I need to catch up on my emails, or I need to, you know, whatever it is that you might be doing. But this says to me, look, it's in my schedule. I've scheduled time here where I'm supposed to be doing something creative. So I'm not only allowed to do that, I'm supposed to do that. And that, I think, gives me permission to say, for the length of this camp, that is an important way of spending my time, and I'm going to prioritize that over other things I might be doing. And it also gives me a purpose. Why am I doing this? Like, you know, I have all these craft books and I never look at them. And I think one of the reasons for that is, well, why? What am I going to get out of it? But I've told myself I'm going to do bookwork. I'm going to get a sticker for it. There's a reason for doing this. And I'm going to decide at the end, do I want to keep this book or not? Great. Or perhaps I'm doing exercises and I've got in my mind a project that I'm going to do later on in the summer. I want to try and do a sketchbook based on where I live. So maybe if I'm doing daily exercises, maybe they'll be related to that. Not all of them, but they might be. You know, like going outside and doing the natural thing. Maybe that would spark something that I think, yeah, I want to include that in my sketchbook. So there's a purpose, there's permission, there's provoking ideas. And I just think for me, the reality is always the more I am doing, the more ideas I have of things I want to do. If I'm just sitting on the sofa watching TV, it's rare that I'm coming up with an idea for a new cross stitch pattern. But if I'm stitching, it's really common that I'll come up with an idea for a new pattern. Yeah, if I'm doing housework, I mean, maybe sometimes, but again, rarely I'm thinking about, oh, you know, this thing that I want to do, but I don't quite know how it's going to fit together. But if I'm at the table with things in my hand, oh yeah, that's when I'm working it out. So for me, it's definitely working. You've got to give yourself permission to fail. You've got to give yourself permission to not do things daily, but daily-ish or weekly-ish or whatever. You've got to fit it in around life. You know, the reality is I'm not on a summer camp taken away from life where people are going to put food in front of me and take it away and wash it up and provide everything I need. I'm working most of the summer and I've got to do that. But it's definitely working so far, at least for me, to give myself permission to prioritize creativity outside of those things. So plans for week 2. What have I got? Well, I haven't chosen my exercise. Oh, there we go. There's one of the little Zentangles that I did. I quite enjoyed that one. Week 2, I have put nothing yet in my schedule, but I have got in my head. Let me show you the bookwork I'm going to do for week 2. So this is Drawing Lab. I have definitely used this before and I'm pretty sure I will keep it and keep using it. It's really just another way of exercises. So I might just pick all my exercises next week from this. I'm picking my exercises deliberately according to time I've got and availability. You could put them all in a jar and pick randomly and that would be fun too, and I might do that some weeks. But next week, for example, where I'm going to be away, I want to make sure I pick things that I will have the materials with me to do. So I will plan that in advance. For example, this one, which is about printing, I won't try and do that when I'm away. That's something I need to do and make a mess in my own house, not somebody else's nice hotel. It's not a hotel, it's a conference centre. Anyway, yeah, and some of these are bigger projects. So 100 faces. I'm not going to do 100 of anything this summer, I'm just not. But I might do some. I've got life drawing. I love this eyedropper face. I might do that. I do love drawing with the dropper from a bottle of ink. I love things that sort of take some of the control away from you. Yeah, a lot of these are portraits. Is it just portraits at the beginning? I don't think it's portraits all the way through. Now this is something I could definitely see myself picking as an exercise for next week, this kind of abstract. Yeah, I like this. So let me just explain this exercise. You know, it's inspired by Joan Miro. I don't really know how you say that name. I think I had always assumed Joan was a woman, but I think it's actually a man. Could be wrong. Might need to go and check that out. Yeah, he was male, even though he's called Joan. It's probably not pronounced Joan in Spanish, is it? Anyway, look up their art, familiarise yourself with some of his works, pencil block in a series of elements based on that, fill a page, stick with it till the page fills. Once you're happy with it, go over it with a fine liner, and then colour it any way you like. So that's a fun thing to do, you know, and you can see the kind of shapes there. These are not complicated things to do. This is the example there. You may find it to be harder than it looks. That's really interesting because it looks really easy. So we'll see. So I think maybe I'll do that one. Let's try and find some. There are definitely some clay creations. Yeah. Collaborate with a child. It's a fun exercise, isn't it? Thinking about words. Another featured artist. Scribble drawings. That's a fun one I might do. Yeah, do a scribble and then see what you make it into. Paint blots, doodling on steroids, machines and inventions. Be inspired by the cracks in your pavement. So yeah, so I do, like I say, I think it's a really fun book. If you're not sure where to start with something, this has great starting points. Be inspired by office supplies. Yeah, love it. I love this. The first part of the instruction on this one. If you work at an office, block out a week of lunch hours to work on this exercise. Maybe you've got a meeting room or somewhere you could do it, but you know, do it at your desk. Doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be big. Consider asking a like-minded friend to join you. I love that. If you work in an office with other people, get a couple of you together. Just have a little art time lunch club for a week. Gather items you might find in a regular workplace, cheap printer paper, post-its, index cards, receipt books, ledger paper, stickers, highlighters, ballpoint pens, whatever. Start experimenting with your materials. Try scribbling, one-line drawings, starter exercises. Once you get the seed of an impulse, continue working with that. Complete 5 to 20 works over the course of the week. Isn't that a great idea? Isn't that a great idea? I love that. Working in the office with office materials, with office colleagues on some art. I have an office. I don't work with other people. So, you know, design a poster, illustrate a fairy tale, make your own story. I like that idea. So anyway, I think I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to take this with me. I'm going to take some basic sketching and colouring materials, possibly paints, but probably not, and try and work on some of these. These are longer projects than my normal exercises, so I might find I only do 1, maybe 2 in the week. That's okay. So I'm looking forward to that as my book work for the week and maybe my exercises for the week. My focus project, I will still be working on a Saviour's Praise, but it's not going to be my focus because some of the week I'm not here, and it's really not a travel project at this point. So I think I had written down what I thought my focus project was going to be, and I think it is no, look at that, I just put a blank. But I think what I'm going to say, what I really want to try and do over the summer as well as this, is that sketchbook that I was talking about, probably a concertina sketchbook based around where I live and the farm where I live. So I think maybe what I want to try and do next week is focus on that a little bit and get together some of the materials I might want to use in that. Some of the collage materials, some of the sketches, yeah, some of the shapes. So some of that I can do while I'm here, but even some of it I might be able to do while I'm away, inspired by photos and things. So I think that is going to be my plan for that. My field trip next week, quite excited about this. Again, this is something that I booked months ago before I thought of this idea, but it is perfect. I'm going to the Festival of Quilts on Thursday, and I'm booked in for a workshop on making a quilt zine. So I love zines. Zines, little homemade magazines, often just a single piece of A4 paper folded up in a way that makes it into a little book. Yeah, I've never thought about how you do a fabric one or a quilted one before. So I think that's going to be a really fun workshop. I'm excited to see what comes of that. But also the Festival of Quilts itself will be inspiring. I really don't want to do a lot of shopping. I'm not saying none. I really don't want to do a lot of shopping. But I want to spend most of my time looking at the display quilts and the display stands, and being inspired by that. And I will take my sketching things with me, and try and do some sketching and take some notes. I will take photographs and I will try and show you those next week, but I don't want to just interact through my phone. So those are my plans for next week. I'm really excited about that. I hope you might think about joining me if you haven't already with Camp Nobody Cares. Make beautiful things even if nobody cares. Have fun, play with it, even if nobody cares. It's for you, and give yourself permission to do that and enjoy that. Give yourself permission to play. Don't think, what am I going to make? What is going to be the focus here? Why am I doing this? But actually the process is the point. The other thing I really liked from the magazine that I was reading, we need to get rid of that idea of practice makes perfect, because we're never going to be perfect. Practice makes progress. So give yourself a chance to practice some things that maybe you've never done before, or you've done but you want to do more of. And don't worry about being perfect, but are you making progress? Are you having fun? Are you being creative? So all the links for that below. The final thing I nearly forgot that I did want to talk about, Journals for Breakfast. I'm going to link her again, not just because of her summer art camp video, but because I just watched a video on solo RPG. Now, I am not a gamer. I mean, I quite like a board game. I can be competitive in Trivial Pursuit, but I'm not a gamer. And I'm definitely not into role-playing games. I've not ever, seen the appeal of it, really. Solo role-playing games, I'm like, what is that? I don't even know why I really watched the video, because I'm like, I mean, that just sounds like something I would not be interested in at all. Anyway, I did watch the video and I'm like, I mean, this sounds amazing. So let me explain to you what it is and whether you might be interested in this or not. So it's essentially a series of prompts to help you come up with a character, a family, a world, things that happen in that world. Why would you do that? Well, you might do that if you wanted to write a novel, but what she's talking about is solo RPG journaling, and the idea that you don't just make a journal for yourself. I'm kind of bored of that. But that you might make a journal for a character. So she's doing a kind of witchy themed one, and she has this, witch, and she's done a map of where she lives and what's in her herb garden. And, so she's doing scrapbooking and painting and writing and, researching what name am I going to give this character. And it did just sound really, really fun and creative. So I have downloaded a solo RPG. I put the link from the shop where I bought mine. It is not witchy themed. Mine is based on a walk along a beach. I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know when I'm going to get to this. It probably won't be. It might be September before I get to it. But there were kind of other ones I wanted to do. There was one, a door between parallel worlds. And so you start off and you have your house, but then you open the door and it takes you to a different world. And I'm imagining it being a bit like the Magic Faraway Tree, where every time you open the door, it's a different world. And you can have fun and play around with that. I think the one I've got, the main characters are, I can't remember what they're called, but they're little pebble-shaped things. So you'd have to be able to draw people. You just draw a little pebble. Anyone can draw a pebble. It's just a wobbly shape. And maybe you put little eyes and a mouth on it. I don't know. And maybe it's fun to paint them. And maybe it's fun to make up stories about them. And yeah, I don't know. So anyway, that was an entirely new thing to me. And I just thought I'd mention it because it could be a really fun summer camp project to do. Again, it could be a really fun thing to do if you're doing it with a child. And, they use their imaginations and what could we build? Maybe you make their actual little house for your pebbles or whatever it is. But yeah, it was about a £5. So not expensive. You download it all, print out what you want, and then you do you from then on. So that's a new thing I am going to try, but not next week. That, I think, really is, I'm just looking around, everything. I do have one little bit of haul I was going to do. I've bought a lot of fabric in the last week, but most of it hasn't arrived yet, fortunately. But this one has. And look at that! Isn't that so cool? Isn't that so cool? Let me just show you. I want to show you all the colours of these amazing lobsters. Now, I have got coming to me the next Cotton and Twine subscription box, which is designed by Yasmin's Made with Love, and it features a lobster. So I might need to use a little bit of this for the finishing of that. But really what this is going to be is a summer dress. I've been really enjoying wearing this summer dresses that I made a few years ago, actually, but they fit me really well just at the moment. And they're a sort of loose, not gathered, not flowy, but not tightly fitted, like a sort of shift dress kind of fit, although it's a bit more fitted than a shift dress. Knee length, short sleeve, one of them sleeveless, really comfortable in this really hot weather, nice and cool dresses to wear. So I think I plan to make another one of those in this fabric, but also I think it will have to go with the lobster. Good. Right, I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for sticking with me. It's been quite a long one. I will be back next week, hopefully, to update you on Camp Nobody Cares and a little bit of stitching. And there may or may not be, I feel like I say this every time now, there may or may not be a stitch quilt tutorial. Who knows? But there will be. You will have had Y and you will have next weekend Z, and that completes the first alphabet stitch quilt series. Happy stitching. See you next time.